I don't think we got a treasurer's report this month, but we should see if we can get that maybe emailed in, and
Probably not much different from last time.
right, I'm sure. But it's just nice to, you know, get that down on paper and document it and just say it's the same. So I have a fairly long list of stuff to get through. I hate to say, I apologize.
Because I didn't have much of anything.
Okay, all right. Well, the two kind of critical things that are coming up fairly quickly are we've got 2 transition on taps that are coming up.
Oh, 2. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I knew about the 1.
Yep. And so the first one is the Kiss the Ground, watch party on Netflix. And I would just like to say to anybody watching this on, the video on Facebook, please join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Every indication seems to be that the movie's going to have a lot behind it, a lot of substance, and a lot of follow-up. I believe there's going to be possible online learning opportunities and other things to help really bring sustainable agriculture forward in a big way. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to get inspired and help move that movement forward. And hopefully we'll all like the film. But if we don't, or if we do, we can all gather afterwards and chat about it and talk about maybe what we can do locally to help, their efforts. Again, that will be the 22nd,
Right.
and the information and stuff is all on the Facebook page and website. And
I might just have to get a Netflix subscription for that, and and if I don't want it in a couple months, then I can just stop it again if I.
Yeah, or maybe you can find somebody who'll share theirs with you, or you can go socially distance and watch together or something.
Yeah, I really don't know who would have it, but it might be just beneficial to me just to get my own subscription anyway. So
I love Netflix. I just love it. And so the second transition on tap, it will be in October, and I don't have a set date for it yet. It's a little, I guess, a bit of a special project dear to my heart, because you may or may not know, I've got my own little mini documentary series that I've been working on for about the last year and a half, called Boots on the Ground. And the final in that Boots on the Ground series is going to debut in October. We don't have an exact date set yet, but it will be in October, and it will be a live YouTube premiere event. And that specifically focuses on the cultural transition of the animal sheltering system here in the Twin City metro area, from being high-kill animal shelters to being no-kill animal shelters, and sort of how that came to be and the broader cultural implications of that. I think it's a particularly relevant film to the transition movement because of the culture change aspects of the film and what really happened, moving from a really top-down, hierarchical, heavy-handed, draconian sort of animal control to being a more community service-based animal control that's less racist, and the implications less racist. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how those are connect.
Yeah, you'll have to see the film to understand, but in the short version, I'll give you a quick history. Minneapolis animal control way back when used to have this thing called breed-specific legislation that prohibited, for example, the owning of pit bull dogs. And they used that as a means of punishing and retaliating against communities of color in the community.
Hmm.
So they would literally target poor and minority neighborhoods, and they would seize and kill their, so-called pit bulls. One of the lawyers in the film, Marshall Tannock, actually sued the city of Minneapolis, and it was proven that the animal control officers couldn't even identify the breeds of dogs. They brought these giant, blow up posters of dogs into the courtroom, and the animal control officers all disagreed about what breeds of dogs that they were, so
Wow.
they couldn't even really identify the breeds of the dogs. And so the breed specific law in Minneapolis was thrown out due to the constitutional void for vagueness doctrine. They couldn't enforce it, it was too vague. They
Mhm.
couldn't determine the breed, so they couldn't enforce it, so they threw the law out, and breed specific legislation became illegal statewide in Minnesota
Mhm.
decades ago. But what happened is animal control just took their dangerous dog laws and used them to achieve the same purpose, to still target communities of color. And that resulted in very high kill rates in the animal shelter because they were unnecessarily seizing animals and largely targeting communities of color. And so the transition to no kill has all kinds of, I mean, that's just one of the tentacles in this that
Mm.
goes out into these other broader social issues. And so I do think, even though it seems like it's about animals and animal shelters, it really directly ties into the broader transition movement in a whole host of ways. And
Mm.
so the October event will be the live premiere of the film Boots on the Ground, talking about that transition. And it really does get into those topics of racism and, um, that sort of draconian, punitive culture that resulted in all those animals being killed in shelters here for years, and how they turned it around, and how that offers a learning opportunity for the police department and, other areas of government here. So I'm hoping everyone will come and join in the premiere. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot to learn. I am not a filmmaker. Even though I'm making films, I'm not a filmmaker, so it's not going to be as nice as the Kiss the Ground film. But I'm hoping the message will be well received and people will like watching it. So I'll let you
Yeah.
know when the date comes out.
Okay. Look forward to that.
Can I ask a question? I don't know that I actually get emails about events from the Longfellow page. Is that still connected, or are folks supposed to be getting emails about events?
Um, Emails don't go out automatically when events get posted. The
Okay.
only time emails go out is if a blog post gets made. And
Okay.
sometimes we do a special, blog about events.
Sure.
And so I think I did a blog about the Kiss the Ground. So you should have gotten hopefully an email about that if you subscribe to the blog.
Subscribe to Transition Longfellow. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
to subscribe
that
separately
no,
to the blog.
that is the blog. So if you're subscribed to
Mm,
Transition Longfellow, you should get an email from when blog posts go out.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, we'll
And I just want to mention too that we haven't had that many events. So
right.
right. So
Right,
there hasn't been any emails to send out in regard to events.
right.
No, I think it's something that I've noticed. I just haven't brought up, but and yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's something different. I just don't feel like I don't know if I actually have gotten that one, but anyway, so I don't know if it's helpful or not helpful for folks to have emails. I don't think people check the website unless they have a reason to.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so typically, for the bigger events, what I try to do is put it on Facebook, put it on the website, write a blog post. And so they'll most typically would get email, Facebook, And if they check the website, they would see it. And then in some cases, I also post them on nextdoor.com. And
Right.
so the Kiss the Ground event is, I think, been put in all of those places.
Okay, sounds good.
Hopefully people will show up. I'm just really excited about that film. I'm obviously really excited about my film too. Again, not the same category of film in any way, shape, or form. But
So it isn't like a sort of blockbuster type movie that people, you got competition.
You mean my film? Well, my film, it's like, you know, it's for my film, I'm like a guy, one person. I'm the writer, the director.
No, I'm talking about the Kiss the Ground.
Oh no, Kiss the Ground, that's a major film. I mean, it's
right, a major film, and but because there's most theaters aren't open, you know, it probably hasn't been. I mean, it's a documentary, right? Yeah.
It's a documentary narrated by Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, right. Who's pretty big in Hollywood, you know, but right.
They're releasing it in a variety of different ways. They are doing public screenings for it with they're doing outdoor screenings of it. In fact, they're even offering outdoor screenings of it, you know, at no charge, no royalties, no nothing for any events. And I even debated about trying to do that when I found that out, but they're not available till the end of October. And this is Minnesota, and outdoors in the end of October in Minnesota can get really dicey. So.
Oh yes, no, you probably wouldn't get too many people to come to. I mean, it depends on
Right.
Not usually warm. Yeah. What dog is that? Is that yours or is that
that's mine?
Yours,
that's mine.
That's yours.
Yeah, okay. There's some people out at our front yard. They're doing some digging out there, and the dogs are a little,
being territorial.
Yeah. So anyway, that's those events. Hopefully everybody can join us, and I'm excited about it and all that.
Okay, good.
Then the next, there's this kind of broad category of topics, and they relate to, or they kind of came up in my head because I, recently had a conversation with Leslie. She has been engaged by Transition US to reach out to some of the different transition groups to talk about, some of the things that we've been talking about at these meetings, leadership, policies, and other issues about how do we engage people more. And I'm from that I got a lot of value from talking to her, by the way. Leslie, if you're saying this, thank you so much. What a great conversation. And, some of this is, I'm going to tell you, is directly what she said. Some of it is my interpretation of it. But my interpretation is that things in transition in the US are progressing differently than they are in Europe, which is not surprising to me. It's a very different culture. In the US, we have a very different culture than they have over there. And so structurally, the Transition US folks are, asking important questions like, how do we as a movement, make ourselves, how do we motivate ourselves more? How do we move this movement forward more rapidly? How do we engage more people? And so I just thought, I would again open that conversation up. I believe from talking to her, it sounds like a lot of transition groups across the United States are really struggling, particularly since COVID hit. And in a weird way, I think that is unfortunate because I think COVID provides us an opportunity to move the movement forward And so rather than letting it derail the transition efforts, I would love to see if we can, find some, creative thinking about how do we move it forward as a result of, COVID and things. What is the going, again, my brainstorming, what's the goings on that point to the need for a new social transformation that COVID brings about. I think it points to all kinds of issues in our existing structure that we could maybe find ways of highlighting. But anyway, it's not obviously not a topic we're going to get to today, but I just wanted to let you know, I think that we should continue to have that conversation. And I don't know if these planning meetings are the right place to do it, or if we should, get a specific group of people to sit down separately and talk about, our organization, what we think we can do locally, how do we inspire our community more to bring this message forward more rapidly, or what I just wanted to bring that up as another big conversation. and my sense is I don't think that we should do it during these meetings, because they end up going for over an hour and we don't have time to get through the nitty-gritty details. And so I think we should, designate a separate group of people to sit down and kind of hammer out some of that stuff. And some of the specific things that came up in that conversation were things, fairly concrete things like, what topics or rules go around, maybe not rules is a good word, maybe guidelines, for our website. And Leslie specifically brought up as a, for example, a string of posts and, comments and things that had been on the Transition Longfellow Facebook page that were just overtly, climate denier kinds of content. And so, the question comes up is, should we or have guidelines or rules around that content? I mean, at one point, Leslie even went so far as to, publicly say online, this is a bunch of climate denial stuff that shouldn't be on our Facebook page, but I'm not really comfortable deleting it. And, we should, I think that rather than sitting down and going through those one by one each time, I think we should have some written down rules and guidelines for stuff. Like, what topics are appropriate? What will we allow on the website? From my perspective, anything that's just overt climate change denial stuff shouldn't be on our website, shouldn't be on our Facebook page. We just shouldn't have it out there. That's my opinion. But I think that we should have a conversation as a group to decide what those guidelines and rules are, so that, we don't end up in debates and argument online about that stuff. I think that those conversations actually turn people off from participating. And so it's best if we can avoid having them by having those guidelines in place right off the bat. That's my 2 cents. But again, I don't think we can have any of that conversation just in these planning meetings. I think we have to have a leadership group that does that stuff. And right now we don't have that group.
No.
Does that all make sense?
Yes, I don't know if I've seen what you're talking about as far as the climate deniers, and but anyway, I don't follow the Facebook that closely, but I go there maybe once every few days or so.
Yeah.
But
Well,
Um,
and that specific, string doesn't really matter. Um, but it was someone posting,
mhm.
links to, climate denier stuff, with
Okay, I see. Right.
videos, of climate denial stuff. And
Uh,
and there's been a handful of, like, you know, COVID denial stuff. And, and so, how do we manage that? How do we deal with it? And, I think we should have some, instead of having the fight about that stuff happen out there in the public sphere, I think we should just have a
right,
policy
protect,
and just handle
right,
it.
because intrinsically, our group, it's like we definitely believe in climate change caused by human activity. I mean, that's our basis of, what we're built on, and we should,
Yeah.
we shouldn't even be having those debates
Right. And
there.
we believe in science, and we
And we
believe
believe in science, yes.
and we believe
Right.
in
And we
math,
believe
and
that the COVID thing is real.
right. Yeah.
um, right. So I think that's a good idea. I don't know. Well, I mean, mm, I, I don't know why we have such a small group this time, this planning,
Yeah.
we had a little bit larger group last time, which I'm
Yeah.
happy about. And I was happy about, um, no, because I was all caught up in other things, planning for my birthday thing and all of that, I didn't get this reminder out about tonight's meeting. And I don't know if that made a difference for people if I need to put a reminder out there earlier, like a few days in advance.
Well, my personal feedback is, number one, thank you for sending those reminders. It was really helpful for me. I really liked getting it, and I think the timing of it was just fine for me.
Right.
Um,
The
the
people who aren't normally keyed into the day and time when,
right, right,
I mean, even in our planning group, I mean, people's lives get really busy and,
right,
maybe they don't put it on their calendar. Oh, this is the third
right,
Wednesday, and
right.
I
But
getting
think
a reminder a few days in advance is very important for people just to, or maybe
I,
it's because we didn't have a list of things that we're going to talk about, or so.
right, yeah, I was just going to go right to that place, because if you remember last month when we had more turnout, we had actually had an online conversation, through email, about what we, needed to talk about at the meeting. And so there was this online conversation. There was more activity amongst a, group of people. Um,
The whole planning group.
yep,
I couldn't
yep.
remember if the whole planning group was involved.
Yep. And so we were kind of putting the agenda together, and that didn't happen this time because it's nobody's job to do that. And so which gets me kind of back to this. I don't want to always sound like a broken record, but we haven't had a leadership team that have roles defined to do those things. And I still think that we need to have that, so that it's somebody's job to put the agenda together of what we're going to talk about, what the meeting structure is going to be, and then at least a week before the meeting, start engaging in that conversation to put that list of things together. We've got to, if we're going to be a functioning group, we've got to start doing those kind of practical things.
Mhm.
Or we'll just keep having these spur of the moment meetings and nobody will come to them.
Uh-huh. Right. Well,
are you guys, I mean,
oh, go ahead, Emily.
oh, I don't know if you guys if you're talking about last month's meeting. I mean, I wasn't here, but I think there were a couple more groups, but just in general, the numbers are dwindling, and 3/4 of the people on the planning group emails are not really in the planning group or have attended for months.
Yeah.
So, so this, it's not, you know, there's not the interest right now in leadership or having those roles. I think, I don't know. I mean, it just every month, or it's continuing to dwindle more and more. And I think,
But I would argue that's in part because we're not doing those things and we don't have those roles defined. If we defined those roles and said, you know, and even though it wasn't a huge increase, it was, you know, it was more people, you know, which is better than less. And the thing that was different was that we were engaged in this conversation about what was going to be in the meeting. And that simple conversation, I think, does stimulate people to come. And because it's not only a reminder, it's also kind of pre-participating in the meeting. But as long as we don't have that defined as somebody's responsibility to do, it doesn't get done. And so, but I think it's an important part of the organizational process. You know, that, and doing it can't hurt. Not doing it isn't going to help, but doing it can't hurt. And so we either throw up our hands and say, oh, there's not much interest, or we reorganize ourselves to be more effective. Those are kind of the choices. That's how I see it.
Right.
yeah, no, I agree. I just don't know. Yeah, I agree. I just don't know if how we're doing it is necessarily working it. Like, I think at the meeting last month, I did watch, and there seemed like there was a woman I hadn't met before that joined the meeting. And maybe she introduced herself later or earlier, but I also didn't really hear much from her. So I don't know if she intentionally just was saying, I just want to sit in and listen, or if that's kind of where we have failed. And that's where I failed too, was we get new people to come, but it's how do we get their input and keep them engaged and have their voice heard and things like that. And I know that's where I've struggled when I've hosted events too. So I don't know all the context about what was going on during that meeting. It was just kind of an observation.
Yeah, I think she actually heard about the meeting from an invitation that I had sent out at nextdoor.com. And I had neglected to start recording the meeting early, so we missed the treasurer's report. And she did introduce herself, and
Her name Jessie, or
yeah, right, yeah, Jessie. But then we also had, you know, the Chart Your Yard folks there and stuff, and then Bruce was there, and so, you know, we had, you know, more people.
But I think that's where we are struggling is, I mean, I think she was there and I didn't watch all of it, but we got somebody new, which was great. I'm glad that she called in, but I don't know if we heard much from her, and not that she had to talk, but what brought you to this meeting? What would you like to work on? What would you like to see Transition Longfellow, you know, becoming or working on? I think it's both, like, the voices outside of our group that we kind of need to hear and see what would motivate you to join or to help out. And maybe the way to do that is, yeah, hopefully through some of the Transition on Tap or more kind of social events versus kind of planning meetings, maybe.
Yeah, because the planning meetings, you know, it's nice to hear from people, but it's not really the time for new people to come in and start talking about what they want to do either, really. I mean,
no, I think you asked her.
Yeah,
what
for
brought
sure.
her to, you know, how she
Sure, yeah,
knew about it and why she wanted to join and so far. I think you did.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, that's, again, that we're not going to solve that issue today, but I believe, I'll just say again, I think that those issues are structural, and that we can solve some of those issues structurally by, you know, filling our leadership positions, having roles and responsibilities for doing things like creating the agenda, putting the agenda out there, getting people to it. Without that happening, people won't know what's going on and they won't know to come if they want to. And so
I think what really got a lot more people involved last time was because you would advertise you were going to do this game thing.
right,
Which
yeah, right.
yeah, I mean, it was, that was something new and different, although we didn't have enough people to actually do it, but
Right.
maybe that, you know,
But that's
so
just,
I mean,
but I would argue that's just kind of another agenda thing. So whatever is our agenda thing that we're going to talk about could bring people to the meeting, hopefully.
well, I mean, okay, well, this is what I mean, since I have been sending out the reminders in the past, and if I did have any agenda items, I would include those with the reminder. I didn't have any this time, but anyway, but
Yeah.
I got behind on everything just because the other things came up for me. But I mean, I mean, barring having an actual decision about who does what and what the roles are, I guess I have just thought that my role was to do a reminder about the meeting, but I can include sending it a week in advance or asking for agenda items. Reminder with requesting, if anybody has any agenda items, please send them to me and I will create an agenda and share it with everybody in advance.
Okay, that's really nice of you, because I think that's, it's not your job, but if you volunteer to do that, I think it would be really helpful. I really do.
So at
I think
least
that
a
would
week
be
in
great.
advance.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I think we should just keep having this conversation. And ultimately, I think we have to take it out of this meeting and get a group of people who sits down and figures out what does that really mean and what does all that stuff really look like. Because I don't think,
What looks like?
all of that leadership structure, sitting down and figure out what the roles and responsibilities are for a leadership group. What are the rules and guidelines for content on the Facebook page and website and stuff.
Well, a lot of those kinds of things. Well, I don't know how we are going to get people that would be interested in that together to work that out. I mean, how do we go about getting those folks?
Well, we'll just have to put it out there that we want them and that this is our goal. And this is, if people know that they can have some input into making those decisions, maybe that would be a reason for them to want to participate.
Right. Okay. All right.
If they can help design and set up the priorities and the structure of the organization going forward, that should hopefully be.
That sounds like a kind of a big, a tall order. I mean, that involves kind of more than just like, we've already talked about kind of how we want how the meeting, what would consist of a meeting and how the meeting structure. We talked about that last time. But of course, so it would be like guidelines for the website and Facebook page.
Yeah. What do we do? I mean, if
what do we allow for that to be posted and
right. Yep. All that stuff. Because we don't want people coming out and a while ago we had this debate about the leadership structure and all this stuff, and people's the message was fundamentally said, well, whoever shows up to a meeting can vote on whatever we want. Well, theoretically, since we have a meeting of 3 people, all it would take is 4 people to show up to a meeting and say, we're going to switch this all over to this climate denial stuff, take control of the website, change everything. It would take 4 people to do that. to reach
Right.
and to send that message out to thousands of people on our mailing list.
Right.
We should make sure that that's not ever an option. You know,
Right.
even if people show up to this meeting and say they want to do that, we should have the rules and structures in place so that that can't happen.
Right.
We were this close. We were this close to that happening.
When?
Oh, not that long ago, we had the president of our organization
Oh, right.
posting climate denial stuff on our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that just, I believe that part of the struggle that we're having is because of all of that stuff. Our message has been less than clear. Our
Mm-hmm.
request of the community has been not clear. And so, you know, we've got to, you know, clarify it, focus it, and get all that figured out.
Right.
We have to do that. Or there's just, you know, well, we just have to do it, because not going forward isn't an option, because we're in a point in this planet where we just need to do it.
Right. Right. Okay.
So setting that, another sort of big topic for everyone to think about, which also goes back to leadership issues. When I was talking to Leslie, you know, we had the conversation about money, finances, how the money flows through the organization, and our reliance on the Alliance for Sustainability for, you know, our nonprofit status and all that
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Well, the version of that I got from Leslie seemed very different than as I understood that to be previously. And so, as I understood it from Leslie, Transition Longfellow is its own separate organization. It is its own separate nonprofit. There was, back in the day, a different tax rule around charitable donations that caused them to have this relationship with Alliance for Sustainability that, in a handful of small circumstances, allowed some people to take an additional tax write-off, which is the entire reason the relationship with the Alliance for Sustainability existed. Those rules have since changed, and we don't take donations online or anything anyway. And so the whole purpose for having that relationship doesn't seem to even exist anymore. And so part of the things that I think that we should talk about is, since we have so much trouble, you know, getting things like, you know, PayPal links and things set up, I think that we should sit down and really figure that out, because it seems like we shouldn't need to have that relationship anymore. That's according to Leslie.
Okay. Well, I guess it depends on whether, or I mean, we did take in donations, you know, when we did an annual fundraiser, you know,
Sure.
where we did take donations, and
Right.
if we're not going to have that anymore, I guess we have to decide if we're not going to have that anymore. We're not going to have a.
But it's not just a matter of that. I believe that the way the rules and the tax code have changed, that the status of those donations doesn't really change anymore, whether we take them directly or they go through the Alliance for Sustainability. And so anyway, again, that's another conversation that we should have offline, but it's
Well, we don't have our own 501c3 status. We don't have
a 501c3, but we have a nonprofit status, which is
yes.
Right.
Right.
In order to go for 501c3, you need to, you know, be generating way more income than we do.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right.
And, you know, because we, you know, take in
right.
what, a couple $1,000s a year or something like that.
Well, hardly anything lately, but
Well,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right.
1,000 was the maximum,
right.
yeah.
And so, you know, it shouldn't have to be as cumbersome and problematic as it has been. We should have a really simple, easy.
Okay.
So I'm just bringing that up to put it on the list of stuff that we need to talk about and you know, deal with.
Uh-huh.
And then and you know, sorry, I've just got this long list of stuff. I'm trying to
Oh,
keep it.
that's fine. It's fine.
The last thing on my list is that, and I think that this is good news. I have noticed a fairly dramatic increase in the numbers of people requesting to join the Facebook page. And when I go in and process those, the comments, or you know, that they can put in terms of, you know, why they're interested in joining Transition Longfellow have taken it. They've changed over the time that I've been doing that and looking at those things. And more recently, the things that I'm noticing people saying more and more often is that they are really struggling with news about climate change and sustainability issues. And they're looking for a place where they can talk to other people who are experiencing those same feelings and facing those same issues, and they don't really have a forum or place for it. And it seems to me that that is a thing that we should find a way of fulfilling. And I don't think that we're doing a really good job of that right now. And so if we can find a way of creating a forum, I know we used to, you know, in part Transition on Tap was a place for that. Emily, thank you for, you know, coming up with that. That was kind of the whole point of that. And I think it served that purpose. And when we haven't been able to get together, it hasn't really, we haven't come up with a good alternative. Maybe people will watch this Kiss the Ground video or this movie, and that'll be the after movie chat will be a place where people can start having those conversations. But I just thought I'd put it out there that if we can come up with more places and more ways to engage in that conversation, I'm open to it. You know, just
Right.
put your thinking caps on.
Right. Well, I don't know. I think we should really advertise a lot this Kiss the Ground thing. I mean, maybe, I don't know, you know, maybe kind of saturate the news waves. Or I mean, not saturate, but you know, I mean, you know, back when Leslie was, you know, we used to get like lots of stuff by email, and that's where I get, that's where what I pay attention to mostly. I mean, I check my email maybe compulsively, maybe once every half an hour in the day, because I don't have a job, and you know, and that's. But anyway, but how I got so involved was that I just knew about all these things that were coming up, these events, and it had great graphics, and you know, I mean, well, for one thing, there was a monthly newsletter by email, and then you could go in there and see all the things that were going on, you know, with Transition, you know, that one could participate in, and you know, I mean, granted, Leslie was a workhorse with Transition, and she was, and I don't expect anybody to have to do that, I guess. But I know that's one of the ways that I kept involved so much, was that I just always, I could see if something coming around the bend, there's some event that I could be involved in, you know, or something I wanted to participate in or view, or, you know, so, and I don't go to the Facebook page that often, but I mean, I could do that more. And, but yeah.
Well, my goal for
Sense.
for Kiss the Ground, I've already put it on Nextdoor. I put it on Facebook. I put it on the website. I'm gonna, send another round of stuff out in the next week, and I'm just gonna ask everyone else to please commit to showing up. Please commit to inviting other people to come to it. I think it's going to be, number one, a really important film. And if people need to find ways of watching, maybe, we can, I don't know, come brainstorm some ways to help people see it if they're having a hard time seeing it.
If they don't have Netflix,
right.
Yeah, I mean, right. And I mean,
well, hold on.
not everybody may want to get a subscription to that just for like viewing one. I mean, I probably could get one, and because I really want to see it,
Right.
And, but maybe most people have Netflix already, so I don't know if it's
I think a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of people have Netflix. I'm just curious if there's anything we could do for people who don't have it, who want to watch the film.
That's what I was going to ask. Can we does anybody have like if we do share screen and someone I don't know if you have to have an advanced account for Zoom, but yeah, if you have it up on your computer and then you just do a share screen so people can kind of see it live.
Yeah, it's an interesting possibility. I just, the technical geek in me just goes, oh my gosh, you're going to be really asking a lot of your computer to be downloading a streaming video while also streaming it out. So
right.
That's a lot to ask of your computer.
Yeah.
But hold on. I'm wondering, I'm trying to go to Netflix right now to see if, what 1 month of this thing, what it even costs. I mean,
well, I know traditionally it's really been pretty cheap, but
right. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is really cheap. I'm just curious if you can do like
a trial or something.
Yeah, if there's like a cheap trial we could promote just to tell people.
I did go on, and you can have a trial. I don't know if you can get just anything you really, anything that you want to watch. It might be just certain things that they allow for that 30-day trial period.
Right.
Free period.
They have plans from $8.99 a month. The most expensive is like $16 a month. And so it looks like, so I don't know. It just, to me, it seems like if anybody wants it, they should be able to get it. I think you can also get month by month. And so that's like, so you spend $15 to watch a movie. It doesn't seem like a big deal.
No, right. Exactly. Right. But maybe you have to make it really clear that you have to have a Netflix subscription to watch this.
It specifically says here, there's no contracts, no commitments, so you can do a 1 month subscription and cancel anytime. So
right. So yeah.
And maybe I should put some of that in my next little teaser out there about it. Right,
because not everybody who doesn't have Netflix would know that. Yeah, you can subscribe for just 1 month and then cancel the next.
Right. So I'll definitely make a note to put that in my next round of stuff.
I wonder if, as far as reaching what people are looking for on Facebook, and I've never really used Facebook Live much, but I wonder if it would be helpful to have some sort of kind of current events time, like time to discuss, because well, the transition on tap is, I think it's good, and it takes planning to do ahead of time, and I don't know if people would come anyway, but I wonder if people are really would be engaged at kind of what's going on now, like for example, a lot of the fires in California, and having, I don't know how that would look or who would facilitate that, but to have, to have a discussion about what, what kind of is going on now, or during the like Australia fires, or if it's, whatever's kind of in the news that people
The
are
hurricanes,
concerned
Hurricane
about.
Sally. Hurricane
Yeah, the
Sally.
hurricanes. Yep, and being able to, and maybe that's a place where people can talk about it, and maybe hopefully get some factual content if that's what people are looking for. It's just a matter of where we get that factual content from and how that's facilitated. But yeah, I don't know if that could be like a Facebook Live thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm curious. I think that's a really good idea. And I was thinking about that in terms of like, I had this strong emotional reaction today about, the birds falling out of the sky. I don't know if you heard that news that's been going around.
Where?
Mostly the Southwest United States. There's a whole varieties of reasons for it, apparently. They're linking it directly to climate change, but also to the California fires. The fall migration is well underway, and much of the Pacific migration is on fire, and that's pushing the migratory birds further to the east. And so they're flying, for example, over the Chihuahua Desert, which they never typically would fly over. And there's just no food or water for them. And so they're literally starving to death and just falling out of the sky in like large numbers.
Oh my.
Mostly insectivores like flycatchers, warblers, and swallows and birds like that. Just huge. I mean, like people are finding dozens of dead birds in their yard.
Oh wow.
They're
Wow.
and
Chihuahua Desert. That's in Mexico.
Yeah, and New Mexico too.
Oh, going to Mexico too. Oh.
Yeah, that's where George and I were there in February. But yeah, so that corridor, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, because the birds are being pushed east because of the fires.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sad.
So I had that emotional feeling, and it's like, where do you go? With a group to sit down and talk about this stuff.
Right.
And I think it would be, and I think it would be great for Transition Longfellow to have a group like that. That would, and how we got together, whether it was Facebook Live or whether it was,
I don't know what Facebook Live is. I don't.
It's just it's another kind of video streaming technology.
Oh.
It's more like a person broadcasting than it is like a conversation, I think, typically.
Oh. Well, why couldn't we have more opportunities like we're doing right now? But yeah, I mean, to get a Zoom gathering to discuss whatever's on your mind regarding climate change right now, with so many things happening. Just set a day and time to get together. And what are your concerns right now? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to get off your mind and talk with other people about? We're gonna have this opportunity of this day of time, and it could be like a transition on tap kind of thing, or call it something else.
Yeah, mean, I think about, and this will, I mean, I've kind of been in and out of transition and kind of have my own, frustrations, but like, yeah, I think there's been a lot of missed opportunities. I think with George Floyd's murder, with the civil unrest, with the cleanup and rebuild, we just or continued rebuild. I think Longfellow's was looking for folks to be on the project on the Longfellow Rebuilding Plan Committee. I don't know if anybody from Transition's doing that, the project steering committee, which seems like a perfect thing for Transition Longfellow to tap into, but I don't know if people heard about it or if we didn't. I didn't get the word out. So just things like that are kind of going on, and maybe then we naturally have ideas like, hey, let's get together and do some cleanup or whatever the case may be. And maybe it doesn't have to be that structured. Maybe it could just be kind of an open place for engagement, conversation about current events, what's going on, what's on your mind, and it could be a place where people ask questions, where people have, people are going to come with their own different knowledge and trying to kind of fact check that with each other. Maybe something like that would work. Maybe it would need to be pretty structured. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not willing to take on another thing, but since I've already committed to transition, the video version of Transition on Tap, maybe after these first two, if maybe we just change that into that sort of a thing.
Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's in addition to that, just as a variety of things. Yeah, I don't know. It's something I think we could, to think about. And
if we could find somebody who wanted to do it, I think it would be great. I would show up, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would maybe be willing to facilitate, but I don't know that I'm always the expert or guru on the current events either. So, I mean, I'm willing to try to put out the feelers and info about it, but as far as kind of coming up with if we want something really structured, I don't know if I'm the best person to do that, but it's something. Yeah, it's something to think about. I'll think about it more and kind of see if I can come up with a better plan and then let you guys know. And we could always do it. It's not like it's much work. We can always do a test run and just see if people are interested, and if they're not, then we just don't do it.
Yeah, I'll just give you my initial gut reaction to it is I think less structured is better. Because it's sort of like, because I envision like the Transition on Tap as being fairly structured. So I'm kind of doing that. So if the other event was the opposite of that, sort of, kind of like this is the place for everybody to just come and talk about whatever they want to talk about, then you don't have to, as the facilitator, you don't have to be the be all end all source of current information.
Right.
And you really are just facilitating the conversation. And I think you'd do amazing with it. And I would encourage and support you. But I would.
Me too. Yes.
I'll let you guys, I'll think about it and let you know. And I'm also thinking, I'm also thinking about an avenue of having people be able to call in and do Zoom if they want. But I think also there are folks that would feel comfortable getting together in an appropriate, in a socially distanced appropriate manner.
Yeah.
And I think that could be worth exploring too, how to.
Yes.
I'm not worried about the groups being outrageous. I don't think we're gonna have 20 people show up. So
right.
How can we have it both? So I'll think about it and see if I can come up with something.
I think it's a great idea. We had National Night Out in our block last night.
Did you?
Yeah, and we had a nice little group of people together, and we shared food, and And I think everybody was responsible, and I don't feel having been put anybody at risk or felt being at risk for the way we did it. And I think that I think you're exactly right, Emily, that we can find a way of, and getting together is so helpful, like actually seeing people face to face.
Yes, yes, it's a real boost whenever I'm able to get together with, it's just a real boost to my morale and my mood and so forth. And, you know, and I've seen like when I go out walking in the neighborhood, like along Longfellow Park, you know, there'll be like a group of people in their, you know, with their lawn chairs, you know, spaced out. It's like looked like they were just having a group meeting of some kind or gathering, or, you know, I mean, everybody's, you know, and it's, you know, if you do it during the daylight, I mean, maybe, I don't know if you have to do it on a weekend during the day. I mean, we're going to have some good weather now for a while. So, you know, off and on. So, you know, but I say, oh, gee, I saw those group. I said, oh, geez, I wish I could be a part of a group that that just sits around and chats.
Yeah.
You know, so in person. But so, but I support you in doing something like that, Emily.
All right, I'll think about it and let you guys know.
Yeah, and then if, you know, I think we should do what we're going to do with the Transition on Tap is record the video, post them on the new YouTube channel, share them on Facebook and the website. And I think it would be great. I would love to see that.
Yes, yeah. Well, I look forward to viewing it and being a part of that. Yes.
Good.
That is my whole list.
Well, that was quite a list. Yes.
I warned you up front.
Pardon?
I warned you up front.
Right, you did. Yeah. Well, I was happy to, because I said, "Oh God, what are we going to talk about?" I don't know. You know, but yeah, that's, you know, and also George had mentioned last time about, or several people. Oh, there's George. Hi. Right. Speak of the devil.
Hold on. Well, since he's done, I'll do this. Can you hear? You can still hear?
But anyway, virtual mending circle could be done sometime when we're all holed up in snowing outside and.
Oh, bite your tongue. I don't want to think of that. It's never going to snow.
Cancel. Just cancel that. Oh, you know. We can get outside and sit out and do our mending, right?
There you go.
Or knitting. George and I have taken up knitting.
Oh, yes.
We've been busy knitting our wool socks for winter. And we've been sitting by the fireplace knitting, I've always kind of thought, like, what would a virtual knitting group in a knitting circle be like?
I have a toe.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, wow. You know, I read this, I read this book, and I might still have it. It's called The Friday Night Knitting Group or something like that. It was about these women that came to this where they sold the yarn and everything, and they talked about everything, you know, in their lives, but it all had to do, I mean, they were all knitting, and it talked about all the different kinds. When I think of knitting, people talk about knitting, I used to think that it just had this, like, this coarse wool thing that be scratchy, and why would you want to wear that, you know? So I mean, but now you can get yarns that are just so soft and plush, and that, you know, you would, oh man, look at that, look at how nice that feels against your skin, you know? I mean, it's like, gee whiz, maybe I'll get into knitting.
Yeah. I actually have to get running, so I will let you guys go, but it was good to see you guys again, and
you too, Emily.
Be in touch.
Yeah,
Yes,
I look
right,
forward to
right.
hearing what you
Yes.
come up with for your event.
Okay, I will let you know. All right, see you
Mike's
guys.
got to fill me in.
All righty.
Oh yeah, sounds good. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm guessing, Jean, that means we're all wrapped up and done. I can stop recording.
Yeah.